So, welcome to the letter Dalet, and I want to dedicate our learning to the welfare of all of our chayalim, for the refuah shlema of everyone who is injured, for the return of our chatufim, of our kidnapped ones, and may Hashem bless us with geula soon. Okay, we're going to dig in, and then I have something exciting to say. Well, it's exciting to me. Anyway, Dalet is the letter that comes from the two-letter root dal, Daled Lamed. Dal means poor one. It means lacking. It means deficiency. Dal. So I want to just go through quickly the letters of the Aleph Beit. The Aleph is the Aluf Ha'olam and his vision of loving relationship with his creation. Bet is the Bria, it's us, his creation. Gimel is Gimul Chasadim Tovim, the giving of goodness to the other, which creates the relationship between the Aluf and the Bria, the Aleph and the Bet, is the Gimel, this relationship. With Dalet, we dig in. We actually start fleshing out the details of what this is like. And Dalet, the poor one, the deficient one, the empty one, is about the hole that the excavator digs in order to build the skyscraper. It is the lacking that precedes the growth. And it also, as we'll see, has to do with beginning the growth. So before God created the world, we learn that he created a hole in his eternity, infinity, his perfection, and where he removed the eternity, infinity, and perfection, and that's where he created us. That's where he created the Bria. So this hole, this halal, is like the Dalet. It's that state of emptiness that has to precede creation, building something new. We see that the first Dalet is in the Torah in the word v'yavdil, when Hashem separated the light from the darkness. In other words, he broke his unity, the unity of the oneness that existed, into two, by separating out the light from the darkness. So this Havdalah diminished the unity that was there before. It diminished this previous unity. It's this step that we need to go through of diminishment in order to create something new. So, and just as a chazara, just going back, Gimel, the young scholars in the base midrash that we learn in Shabbos 104a, said Gimul Dalim, give to the poor ones. So Dalet is about the poor ones. And who are the poor ones? They're us. We are the poor ones. We, the inhabitants of the halal, are the poor ones that he's giving to. We actually own nothing. God gives us everything we are and everything we have. It's all from him. He gives us, our food, our clothes, our health, our personality. This is all from God. Our strengths, our weaknesses, they're all from him. They're all from him on loan so that we can accomplish what we're here to do in the world. And even the circumstances, the situations that we find ourselves in, these are also from God. He determines what succeeds and what fails, who wins, who loses. And the character trait that recognizes this is humility. Humility recognizes that everything that we take pride in about ourselves is really God's gift to us. He is giving us these strengths. He's giving us the successes that we have. So then you can ask yourself, well, is there nothing that man has? Is there nothing that's really ours? And the answer is yes, there is. It's our ability to choose. Our ability to choose to align to our Tselem Elokim, which is the core of who we are, which aligns with God, or not. And we have that choice. Sorry. We can choose whether we are going to reflect his we're created b'tselem Elokim, as a reflection, as an image of God, but it's in potential, as we've said before, and we can choose whether this is what we're going to reflect and whether we're going to radiate this out to the world or not. So just one other image that I really like for Dalet, and that's Dalet as Dalet. A Dalet, like how does Dalet correspond to this concept of poor, lacking, deficient? So when you have like walls of a house or a gate that surrounds something, the Dalet in that is the place that's empty. There is no wall. It's not complete. It's not finished. And this opening is what allows us to move forward, to move through it, to grow, to change our situation. That's the Dalet of Dalet. So Dalet is also, the two-letter root of Dalet Lamed is also related to Dli and to Dole, to raise up. Dli is a bucket, and Dole is drawing up, is that aspect of drawing the bucket up from the well. And so connecting with the first concept of Dalet, which is that lowering. So first, before you draw something up, it's got to be low. It's got to be in a low place. So in order to draw something up, it's first got to be lowered. And we see that if anyone's ever done like a front flip off the diving board, or just even diving into the water from a diving board, first you have to you run up to it, you jump down hard because you want to go down so that you can spring up even higher. A trampoline, it says you got to get that downward bounce in order to go up high. So that's really what Dalet is about. It's about the going down in order to go up higher. And this is the concept of Yeridah L'Tzorech Aliyah, the lowering in order to go higher. The diminishment that's necessary for going up higher than we were. And Dalet, as I said, is related to the Dli. It's related to creation, which was diminished in order that it could grow. We reflect the letter Dalet when we lower ourselves and then rise up higher. And there's two different ways we can do this. Either we lower ourselves by giving into our physicality, our animal nature, and become coarse and just kind of correspond to things on an animal nature, or even worse than an animal. But then, through the school of hard knocks, we recognize this is not working. This doesn't work for me. And through tshuva, we raise ourselves up again. That's one way we can do it, which is difficult, but we've all, we have all experienced it, and we're all growing through that. The second way is through humility. When we lower ourselves by recognizing that we are a vessel to hold God's light, everything he's giving us is from him, then we turn our self-centered world into a God-centered world, and then God's response to us is to draw us up so that we can sit by his side in Olam Haba. So now I want to talk about the structure of the Dalet. And if you can see on your chart, the form of the Dalet is very simple. There's a little kutz at the top, and then a crown. Dalet has one crown, and then two perpendicular lines. Dalet it's the general shape of someone that's hunched over, a humble person that's hunched over, hoping for help. And I want to bring out that each letter of the Aleph Beit, and we'll look at this through some of the other letters. Each of the letters of the Aleph Beit, Rav Ginsburg brings this down, is each letter has a form mate. It has another letter of the Aleph Beit that is similar to it in certain ways. So the form mate of the Dalet would be a resh. Exactly.
I have, every time I read something.
Yeah, I have trouble with that too.
Yeah, I've got, is that a Dalet or is that resh?
Exactly. And
even with the
they're also similar, not just in their form, but also their meaning. Resh, the letter resh comes from the two-letter root rash, which also means poor, which also means insufficient.
Doesn't it mean noise?
Ash, with an ayin in the middle.
Right.
I think it looks exactly like a hay without the yud.
Yes, and we're getting
sorry,
there.
you can't.
No, you're right. You're right. The difference between the Dalet and the resh, the main difference, is that there's a little corner, a little added piece on the right side of the Dalet. And Rav Ginsburg says that this is like a tiny yud that's clinging to this resh. And this yud is God's infinite light that is hiding in potential within this letter. And this is what gives Dalet the potential to rise up. And we see it clearly, as Karen pointed out, in the next letter, Hey, where the yud is fully expressed. So this similarity between Dalet and resh come about, as Leslie pointed out. It makes problems, especially when we say the Shema. And in the Talmud it's written, you really need to exaggerate the Dalet, saying the Dalet, because you don't want to say, like the Shema says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Echad. It's one. Otherwise, if it was a resh and you were saying it as a resh, it would mean Hashem Acher. God is another. And we for sure don't want to say that. So in the Talmud, they say that a person has to be really clear and stress, actually draw out the Dalet. So the question is, the Dalet is a letter that, echad, how can you draw out something that's a full stop? You can't. So that brings up the aspect of Dalet, that it is one of the double letters. And the double letters we met with Bet. The double letters are letters, of course, that you can pronounce two ways. There are two different pronunciations. There's the hard Dalet, which is a full stop, but the Dalet in Echad is not a full stop. It's a soft Dalet. It's an undotted Dalet, and there is a tradition that this kind of Dalet, the soft Dalet, is pronounced as a TH sound the TH sound in breathe. That it's this kind of Dalet, and this tradition has been carried out through many Temanim and also Sfaradim. I remember my grandfather from Turkey would say the Echav, and I would say, Grandpa.
Because the phonemic, the sounds are, there's like a b, the v, the difference is what's called voiced and not voiced.
The
When you're-
vocalized,
yeah,
right.
Right, the
Right.
same with, they're like the same, it's like, sounds are like, there's like what's called place of pronunciation, where you put your tongue in your mouth,
Mhm.
and then there's whether there's a sound or another sound coming out. So b and v
Right.
are the same sound, d, the th, the
Yeah,
are the same sound.
yeah. It's just very interesting.
Chava, can I ask, Adam's a silver sun, but what is the meaning of these crowns? Do you know?
No.
I'll ask Adam. Maybe.
The letter Zion is used, and as we'll get to it, we'll see that one of its meanings is a golden scepter, the crown. It's held on a golden scepter, and Zion is used to form many of these other letters that have that have the crowns. So I would say that it's really related to an aspect of Zion that we'll get to, that has to do with the returning light that we bring to creation. That would be my creative answer to your
Now, I'll ask
question.
Adam's a silver sun, and
Uh-huh.
I'll ask.
And I'd be interested to know.
Hi.
Okay, so
As I said, you got,
Well, what Dr. Google just said, Rabbi Google said,
my Google.
that,
I'm keeping Paul for Google, yeah.
that these notations are made in the Torah, and it's to emphasize the majesty of the letters.
right, and that would go in line with the aspect of the Zion being a golden scepter with the crown of the king on it. So, okay. Okay, the number of the letter is number 4. And 4 has to do with the space that creation expands into. Is this place where existence finds expression. So this is actually another aspect of Hashem. He also is referred to as Hamakom. Maybe you've heard that, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem. Also, when you are paying a Shiva call, there's a phrase that you say, which starts Hamakom Yenachem Etchem. The place, godliness, should comfort you in this place where you are. We should never know from this again. So it has to do with place. And just as God has his place, I mean, he's not only what is creation, he fills creation. He fills creation and he is the place that creation fills. He's everything. So just as God has his place, so we also have our place. We have our Dalet Amot, our 4 Amot, cubits, that surround us. And this is our personal space that we can either choose to bring holiness to, or, God forbid, the opposite. We
How
can
far is 4
profane.
cubits?
So a cubit, each amma is 6 hands breadths, or approximately 48 centimeters, or 19.2 inches.
And amas are your forearm.
Yeah, but she said 4 cubits.
A cubit is an amas, so it's
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right,
Okay, I was saying.
Yeah, I always
So-
wondered about a cubit, because everybody's forearm is a different length.
Yeah,
But
so it's
the
an
ilu,
average. Yeah.
Doesn't have to
I
be
mean, my
exact.
cubit is a lot smaller than Andy's cubit, let me tell you.
But there is like a halachic measure of that, right?
That's
What did you
right,
just say?
that's
How many
right.
inches?
19.2 inches. That's it. So anyway, so our 4 cubits, our 4 amot, Dalet amot, it's a nice space, and this is our personal space, our space of immediate influence. And this is something that in halacha, we know that you're not, if someone is davening, you can't like walk through his Dalet Amot. You've got to go around it. We need to respect each other, not just ourselves, but also our space.
Yeah, except when they stand right in front of your door.
Right.
Okay, so Dalet is about spreading out into the four, into aspects of four from one central point. So we know God created four worlds: Atzilus, Atzilut, Bria, Yitzirah, and Asiyah. We are in the fourth world, the lowest world of Asiyah. There are four perceptible dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of time. So we live in a 4-dimensional world, actually. There are 4 basic elements that comprise this world: earth, air, water, and fire.
Earth, wind, and fire. Sounds like a good name for reference.
These can be described also as solid, liquid, gas, and energy.
I've never heard that one. That's good.
Yeah. The 4 holy well springs from which we have sprung: Sarah, Rivka, Leah, and Rachel. And the 4 exiles that we have gone through of Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome. And at the time of Geula, it said that in Yeshayahu that God will gather the lost of Israel and the scattered ones of Yehuda. He shall gather from the 4 corners of the earth. We can understand the Torah through 4 levels of interpretation: Pshat, the simple meaning; Remez, the hints; Drush, which is like elucidations, allegories, metaphors; and Sod, which is the secret, the hidden aspects of the Torah. And these 4 correspond to the letters, the crowns, the vowels, and the cantillation, which we spoke about in Aleph. So, I'd like to talk a little bit.
Cantillations, can you remind me?
The trope,
Okay,
the
gotcha.
melody.
So sorry, I got distracted
Sure.
by the baby. Can you just go back to that last one that ended in cantillations? What were
So
those?
there's 4 components of the Torah. There's the letters, the vowels, the crowns, and the trope. Cantillation. The trope, the melody. I like melody. Okay, so just
Cantillations, it's very fancy.
just as 4 expands from one point, so this and looking at Dalet as exile, like that, that creation of a whole, of poverty, of lack, is very much a part of the concept of exile, being exiled from our land, and also redemption. Redemption is that drawing us back up again. It's bringing us back up to a higher place. And we see that in Pesach, that's coming up soon.
Don't say that.
Sorry. So Pesach is the Pesach is the time. We have time.
It's a leap year.
That's right.
More time.
Yes, it's another month.
So it's when the children, the family of Yaakov, which were 70 individuals, the family of Yaakov, the 70 souls went down to Mitzrayim, and there they were hammered into a vessel that could hold a strong vessel, Am Yisrael, that would be able to hold the light that they would receive at Sinai. And then they would go in to bring it into Eretz Yisrael. It was through this Dalet experience of slavery and degradation and really being lowered. I mean, this was the princely family of Avraham Avinu. They were wealthy. They were the nobles in Canaan, and yet they came down. They were debased and degraded into slaves, and it was But it was precisely through this process of, like divesting them of all of this, that they were able to be that empty vessel that could receive the light of Torah. And we see this aspect of Dalet, and it's the aspect of 4, the number 4, through our Pesach Seder, through the
4 cups.
4 cups of wine,
Questions?
the 4
Important
questions.
thing about
the-
Pesach for me.
Yeah.
Well, if you stick to 4 cups of wine, some of us go a little bit over. We go by multiples of 4.
And there's also the 4 sons, right? And the 4 expressions of Geula, which in English are, I will bring you out from the suffering of Egypt, I will save you from enslavement, I will deliver you, and I will take you to me as a nation. The four aspects of redemption. So all of these 4 come back to another 4 that is the basis of everything. And that is the 4 letters of Hashem's name. Yud, He, Vav, and He. This is the tetragrammaton, that the godliness that transcends space and time, transcends the 4-ness of our world, who interacts with our world, helping it to grow. And the Baal Shem Tov, citing an ancient Kabbalistic teaching, he said that the 4 letters of God's name, the Yud, He, Vav, and He, we can understand how these letters work together. He uses the analogy of a benefactor giving to a poor person. And so this corresponds to our aspect of Dalet, the Dalet that has the little Yud in potential of that God is giving us everything we need to rise up. So first of all, what does he explain? He says the first Yud, the Yud in Hashem's name, is the coin that a benefactor will give to a poor person. And as we see, the Yud is small. It's the smallest letter. This is the coin of infinite wisdom, of life, of light that God is giving to his creation. This Yud is still in the hand of the giver. The next letter, the He, is the hand of the benefactor. And you can see the Dalet of the vessel. The Dalet is the vessel of the hand with the Yud inside of it. So we see that first He is the hand of the benefactor with the coin. The Vav, and just one other thing about the He, as Karen pointed out, the He is comprised of a Yud and a Dalet, which together spell Yad. Yad. So this is another connection of He and the hand, the Yad. Vav is the arm that is reaching out of the benefactor, that's bridging the gap between the giver and the poor one. That's the Vav. And the next He is, as you might guess, the hand of the receiver, of the poor one, who is waiting to receive that coin. And we see that the coin is in fact in the hand of the receiver. But this is our hand, but our Dalet is still incomplete. The vessel that we have to hold God's infinite light is still incomplete. And that's our work in the world, is to complete the work of completing the Dalet. Okay, so Dalet only has one leg. You can look at the Dalet, it has only one leg. It can only stand. It can't walk, it can't run, It can only stand there. Like the angels. The angels are called the Omdim, the standing ones, because the angels cannot,
Walk.
they can't walk, they can't move forward, they can't change. They can fly. No, but they're programmed. They're called Hayot HaKodesh. They're called holy animals because just like the animals who behave based on their instinct, they only have instincts. They're programmed, and the angels also are programmed. They have one mission, and they are and they carry out this mission. They can't deviate from it. And Dalet, the vessel, is also like that. Dalet, the poor one, can't change or grow on its own. She's the empty bucket that's lowered down and then raised up. What is it that is raising her up? It's this tiny hint, this suggestion of the yud in the corner of the Dalet, that she can act, if she actualizes it, she can raise herself up. But if she doesn't actualize it, she will stay as an empty vessel, as an empty Dalet. So by refining ourselves, by working on ourselves, we can access that yud that's in our Dalet, and we can bring it more into actual. It will result in a greater revelation of our spiritual nature. So I just want to point out, though, that there is much about the Dalet of our dli, of our bucket, that can't change. We have hardware. We have hardware that's built into us, that Hashem gave this to us. We can't fix it and we can't change it. I am never going to be 6 feet tall. You know, my hair is not blonde, it's brown or maybe silver. And by this point,
It's ash blonde.
that's a good one. But we do have software that we can upgrade. And this software are the character traits, the midot, that we have, but they are built in to upgrade. We have that potential, and we have that, it's more than potential, it's a calling to upgrade them. These midot were originally installed in us as babies, or before we were born, in a very small, compact, immature state. And they were appropriate for us as babies, as children, but they're not nearly sophisticated enough to bring us all the way through our life's journey. So our job is to upgrade, to fix the bugs and allow for the optimum functioning of our system as we go through all the different stages and experiences of our life. And that's our work, is to refine these midot, like honesty, humility, loyalty, and then to refine them and dedicate them to the goal of revealing more of Hashem's light in the world. This is how we upgrade our midot, and this process is called tikkun hamidot, which, I'm sure you've all heard, strengthening our good character traits and eliminating the bad ones. And it's the work of a lifetime. And we don't even know really who our potential is. We don't know until step by step we constantly are upgrading, we're constantly growing, and until we can really become who we can be. The Orchot Tzadikim writes, if you do not possess refined character traits, then neither do you possess Torah and mitzvot, for the entire Torah depends on the refinement of character traits. Our entire Torah depends on whether the vessel that we are is refined. you can see this in some people who, have learned a tremendous amount of Torah, but their arrogance or their dishonesty in real life situations, it's like, what do they think they're shining out? What Torah are they shining out to the world? So this is really our tafkid, and that's why it's very interesting. The Torah, you would think the Torah would start with talking about that Rosh Chodesh is the first of the months for you. It would start in with the laws, because it's, how do we become, what do we do here in the world? But instead it starts out, it's a book of stories. It's talking about, the Avot, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yosef, what happened in Mitzrayim, because these are examples. It's giving us examples of how to work on your midot, how to refine yourselves, what to do, what not to do. These are all stories for us to learn from, because midot have to take precedence before the Torah. It's easy, though, when you think about, there's certain parts of my character, certain parts of my personality that I really can't change. They're hardwired into me, and I'm not going to change. I can't change them. But don't underestimate your ability to change. Don't overestimate what's hardware versus what's software, because there's recent scientific research that shows that that we really can change so much more than what we thought we could originally. And this whole new area of science is called neuroplasticity, the study of neuroplasticity. And it is, it's about our brain's innate ability to change and grow in reaction to different behaviors or situations. And what happens is that the brain is developing new neural pathways that were not there before. And it's an amazing, it's amazing. There's a book called The Brain That Changes Itself by Dr. Deutsch, and he discusses all of these situations where where brains, let me just start out with this, that the brain, there are certain areas of the brain that govern certain functions of our thinking, of our emotions, of our behavior. And what happens when parts of the brain that governs, let's say, our language ability or our abstract reasoning, when a part is diseased or injury, or what happens when it hasn't been developed through many, many years? What happens when, is it just like that forever? And so this research comes to show that no, your brain is wait, I just need to quote this. It's the brain's way of ensuring, or God's way of ensuring, that people live, that we are here to live. And the brain adapts to the new situation by building, by branching out and building all of these new neural pathways. And I think of my son, who was my youngest son, Dove Bear, who was born severely hearing impaired. He had one ear that could hear, but severely impaired. The other ear was deaf. And he was that way until he was in his 20s, when he decided he's getting a cochlear implant. I mean, he's now, I think, 39. I mean, this was a while ago, but he was an adult already. He decided he's getting a cochlear implant on his deaf ear. He doesn't want to jeopardize the hearing ear. He'd get it on the deaf ear. So he got a cochlear implant, but the neural pathways in this ear were not developed because he had never used it. He spent weeks and months working on hearing, working on distinguishing sounds. There are computer programs that you can connect to that help you, that repeat certain sounds, hours and hours every day for months to develop these new neural pathways. And now this ear is functioning with the cochlear implant. But it was because he spent the time to grow these pathways. There's this amazing case of a woman called Michelle Mack, who was born with the left hemisphere of her brain missing. She did not have the left hemisphere of her brain. And this is written about in the brain that changes itself. This left hemisphere governs language, abstract reasoning, mathematics, and the entire right side of the body. So she worked on developing her right hemisphere that was existing, so that it took over all of the aspects that the left hemisphere would usually take. Now she walks with a brace on her right leg, and she has some difficulty with some abstract reasoning, but she has a part-time job. She is active. She's, for all intents and purposes, she's a normal person. And amazing, totally missing a whole hemisphere of the brain. So
40 years ago, 20 years ago, she would have been a vegetable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's amazing what they do.
It really is. But the brain, and how Hashem has wired us with such potential, if we only realize it and activate it. That's what the kunz is. That's what the important point is. What is our choice? What is our choice? That's the fulcrum that everything balances on. What is our choice? So the scientific research said that daily practices such as mindfulness, meditation, visualization, affirmations, and continuous practice, but continuous repetition of the desired behavior these are all avenues through which the brain can rewire itself and grow. And I just want to say that the Torah and what we do as Jews also has those recommended practices to rewire our brain. The meditative visualization called the Shemona Esrei gives us that picture, that visualization of the perfect world, where we have redemption, everyone is healed, perfect healing for all. There's abundant sustenance. There's the ingathering of the exiles. There's restoration of justice. There's Mashiach. There's the obliteration of evil. It's all there in the Shemona Esrei, and we say this 2 or 3 times a day. We are imprinting this vision in our minds. It gives us something to focus on. The mitzvot, these are practical, repetitive behaviors that we do, the positive ones to imprint these behaviors in our brain. And the negative ones that we don't do allows us to stay away from things that are destructive to ourselves, to others, to the planet, and to our relationship with God. Learning the Torah, contemplating its messages. These all allow us to bring into our minds and our hearts the love and the awe that will give us the koach, the inspiration, to really refine ourselves and become lights in the world. The Shema, the first paragraph of Shema, is a particularly beautiful affirmation. Loving God with all our heart, all our soul and all our might is beautiful. Okay, so now I want to extend it a little bit with even more recent research, which says that the changes that a person does, these new neural pathways, a person who grows themselves, let's say, isn't necessarily just for the person themselves, but it may extend beyond the person. That this is, now I'm talking about the field of epigenetics, where it says that it is markers on specific genes that indicates that behavioral traits can possibly, very possibly, be passed down to other generations, to subsequent generations. The field of epigenetics studies the markers that are on genes that determine whether this is flipped on, that this is active, this gene is active, or it's turned off, which means that it is not activated. And these happen. These markers are turned on or off based on reactions, our reactions to the surrounding environment, whether it's experiences, conditions, whatever it is. So this understanding. So we know that the organism itself, we are affected by whether these markers are switched on and off. But what's now being studied is how this affects the future generations, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, intellectually. And this creates the possibility that all of these aspects that we talked about for expanding our mind and and making all of these changes in our brain can affect specific markers, and so this can be carried on generation to generation. So the title
This is
that
all
the
for
Jews,
you, by the way. These other three old ladies, it's too late for us.
but to tell your kids, and this concept of, Jews are known as the people of the book. So it may not just be a title, but it may be a description of who we are, that because of our emphasis on education, constantly, always learning, growing, whether it's, through the Torah and through the knowledge, the wisdom of the Torah, or even in the secular world, through secular knowledge, our emphasis is always on education and growth. And this may be how we have maintained this down through the generations, by flipping on our markers, we may be affecting the next generation to have these flipped on markers of the importance of education and our ability to learn and to grow through what we've learned.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so this topic always gives me anxiety because it makes me look at the things in my children that are not the most desirable traits at this point and be like, is that my fault? How much of it comes from me and my husband, and how much of it is simply them and their own challenges and things to work through in life.
Right,
and
right.
Of course, I always go to the oh my gosh, I messed up my kid thing.
Listen, the sentence that just gives me chizuk is, we do the best we can with what we know, with who we are at the right time, and that is that's these neshamas had to come in with the kind of parents you were 3 years ago, or 4 years ago. They needed these kinds of challenges to create them in a certain way that they would have their own challenges, that they would then grow through. We each have a particular corner of the cosmos that we need to bring light to. And these are our challenges. This is, what we're here to do. And we each have a very, very specific kinds of challenges, you know. So Hashem knew who you were then, and He said, "Perfect. This is the perfect, you know, way to bring these neshamas into the world." So, does that give you some hope?
It does.
Okay,
And it's
good.
like, I know, but it, you know, at the
Right.
same time, it's like.
Right,
Don't
I
worry,
know.
they'll tell you, that everything's your fault, and they'll continue to tell you that.
We'll have therapy later on.
No, just learn to drink. I told that while Leah had to be here, I said, darling, yeah, boy, just learn to drink, you'll be fine.
Okay.
The truth is, a lot of children like pick up their behaviors not from you, but from their peers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And unfortunately, you can't like creep. You want to, but you can't creep along with them all day and follow them around.
You'll
Right.
be fine.
Okay, so now, just moving on to the last section that I want to talk about with Dalet. Dalet, as I said before, is the poor one. It's us. It's creation. It's the entire Bria, which is like a vessel built to hold God's light. And in that way, we are like the moon vis-a-vis the sun. The moon has no light of her own. She shines only with reflected light from the sun. She's also, it's also very interesting that because her rotation is precisely tuned to her revolution around the earth, she always keeps the same face turned to the sun. I mean, it's a very
Never see the
interesting
dark
thing.
side of the moon.
Exactly, the dark side is always dark,
Mm.
and the light side is always light. And even the luminous part that we see from the earth, it changes. It's not stable. It's always diminishing or getting brighter. It's either going down or going up, you know, as the moon waxes and wanes, or wanes and waxes. But she wasn't always like this. The moon wasn't always like this. At the beginning of creation, the moon was a bright light like the sun. And we see this in the Torah, on the fourth day of creation, when God created the two great lights, right? So the pasuk says, the verse says, God made the two great lights, the great light to rule the day, and the small light to rule the night. Wait a minute. First it's the two great lights. Now it's the great one and the small one. What's going on here? So there's a midrash that's brought down in the Talmud, in Chulin 60b, where they discuss this apparent inconsistency. And they say that originally the sun and the moon were two luminaries, equally great, equally shedding light, ruling the heavens. But the moon asked whether it's possible, how can two kings rule the same crown? How can two rulers of equal power and greatness both rule together? One's got to rule, the other one is like kind of takes their lead from the one ruler. So the Holy One, the midrash says, the Holy One agreed with the moon and commanded her, okay, diminish yourself. You become the small one. And the moon was taken aback and clearly unhappy, going from a great light to a small light. And she said, Master of the universe, just because I pointed this out to you, why should I be the one to diminish? Maybe you could have another solution here. The Holy One then responded to the moon's complaint by attempting to placate her, by pointing out how there are benefits to a diminished position. And he said, you rule by day and by night. In other words, the moon is sometimes seen in the day, in addition to the night. So you're going to be around all the time. You're there, whereas the sun is only here in the day. She didn't like that. And then the Holy One said, the Jews will determine their calendar based on you. Their holidays will all be based on the cycles of the moon. And she wasn't swayed because our calendar is also based on the sun and the seasons of the sun. And then he said, righteous people will be named after you. Yaakov Avinu was called Yaakov the small one. David was called the small one. And she wasn't placated. She was not happy. Why was she not happy? Because she understood by diminishing, the moon understood that by diminishing, she would be diminishing the revelation of God's light in the world. And she would be creating more darkness, more pain, more evil from this diminishment, this hiding of God's light. And she didn't want to do that. So finally, sof, God says, okay, the children of Israel, I will command them to bring an atonement for me because I diminished the moon. Because I diminished the moon. It's as if God is saying, this is in the midrash, quoted in the Talmud, it's as if the Holy One is saying, I did a sin, so to speak. I diminished the moon. I am bringing more evil into the world, and that more darkness. And so I want the children of Israel to bring a guilt offering to me, for me, on behalf of me, because I diminished the moon. And so this brings up the question that we had before. Why did God choose to create a world where his light is diminished? Why not flood the world with divine light? So why create something for which he needs atonement? So this comes back to the Dalet, the concept of diminishment for rising up greater. The Yerida Litzorech Aliyah. Only by humbly and modestly growing through darkness and difficulties, through these challenges, can we actualize the greatness of our Tzelem Elokim. It's only, as we spoke about in another letter, it's only when we are pushed through these tests, these very difficult situations, we are pushed to see through the darkness, to see the light that is there. It's only by doing this that we actualize the Tzelem Elokim that's inside of us. It's a difficult journey. It's a really difficult journey, but that is the way we grow. And it's like the degradation of Mitzrayim hammered us into the vessels that could receive God's light at Har Sinai. And it's about process. Dalet's journey is about process. The process of diminishment and the process of growth again. It's the growth of our work, what we do. And we know in Kiddush Levana, the prayer that's said when the moon is reaching her fullness, it's written that the light of the moon will once again be as the light of the sun, as it was before it was diminished, as it is said, the two great lights. So we know, we have that vision, that our light will be restored. We will be great again. It will be the two great lights. We'll once again shine, but this time we'll be shining with our own light. we will have created this light. We will have created our vessel to hold this light that God is giving us. And as it says in Mishlei, in Eshes Chayil, Eshet Chayil Ateret Ba'ala. The accomplished woman is the crown of her husband. And maybe this is why Dalet has the one crown that we spoke about, because this is the crown on the scepter of the light that we create through our growth. And Keter will have grown, the Keter, the crown, will have grown into Malchut. The Keter, the vision that's up here, will have grown into Malchut, which is the embodiment of that vision. And that's our goal and our process.